Welcome to Talk with Olena podcast for immigration practitioners in Canada. Today I have a very special guest, Matthew McDonald. I'm super happy he joined me today for this conversation. This talk really ended up being super vulnerable, sensitive, and raw. We both teared up during our conversation. So I really want you to have a listen. But before we jump into our conversation, please go to the description of this podcast, go visit Matthew's website, learn about him. And just as a reminder, my RCIC Business Accelerator opens up September 10th for the new intake, and you can check it out in the link down below. Now, let's go and listen to this conversation with Matthew. Hello, everyone. Today we have our guest, Matthew McDonald. Hi, Matthew. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Olena.
No problem. Happy to have you, and thank you for coming. Okay, so let's chat. I've been following you on LinkedIn. We actually never met before.
Oh, today's the first conversation.
Exactly. That's why I love my podcast, because I just reach out to RCICs and I get to meet so many people, and it's great. So I've been following you on LinkedIn and I absolutely love your content. If you guys listening to this and you're not following Matthew, please do, because it's just really, really amazing how many insights you're sharing about your career as RCIC, your struggles, and your experiences. So let's talk about that today. Tell me a little bit about your background. When did you get your license?
Absolutely. So I've been licensed since 2016. My RCIC journey began through the post-secondary education sector in Ontario. I began working as an international student advisor shortly after it became, or just during the transition period, when anyone who worked in the college or university sector had to be licensed in order to provide immigration advice to international students. So I started that job in 2013, and very quickly my employer started asked me to enroll in an education program at the college where I was working, Humber College, so that I could get my license to become an RCIC. So finally in 2016, I got my license, and I worked as a licensed international student immigration advisor for several years before I outgrew that position and then moved elsewhere into another role in the university sector. But even after I stopped being an international student immigration advisor, I kept my license because I had to register my business, and I thought, you never know. And I just started getting some requests on evenings and weekends and started taking cases through my personal network, and it just grew from there. I kept my 9-to-5 job in the college and university sector. My background is in education. My first career was as a teacher. I used to teach university writing classes, and I taught high school English. I studied literature in university. I really thought I'd be in education for life. But then as my immigration practice grew, and as I knew even when my work in the university sector was not with international students, I really had a heart for them. And so eventually it just made sense for me to make the switch. And since August 2023, I have been working full-time in Canadian immigration.
Wow. So you got licensed in 2016, but you became self-employed only August 2023. It's a long journey.
Yeah, I mean, to distinguish, I was self-employed, but since 2016, I would do a few cases. It was wonderful extra income as like a second. I called it my vacation money. I didn't count on it to live and to pay my bills, but if I was doing extra work on evenings and weekends, that meant that we could take a bigger vacation that year. So it was a bit of extra travel money, which was a nice way to pay for the licensing and ongoing education, and good motivation to do that extra work that really kept coming my way. And that helped me grow in a really steady way to really have a solid foundation by 2023, that I knew that I could quit my job as an employee and really grow my own business. So I wasn't taking a jump into self-employment. It really felt more like a natural next step, because I had a baseline. I knew without trying how much I was making per month, so that and that was just through referrals. So I knew that if I tried to grow my business, what I had to do and what my income would look like.
Was there any specific like trigger that really was that moment that, okay, that's it, I'm giving my notice? Did you have that?
There was in 2022, I think. 2022, I started. I'd been in my role for a while, and I was getting itchy feet that I knew I needed a career change. At that point, I was doing recruitment and admissions for graduate programs in finance at the University of Toronto, and I'd been doing it for several years. I'd done it during the pandemic, and I was ready for a change. And I started reaching out, networking, applying for some roles, interviewing. Nothing worked out. Nothing was the right fit, and I really was still starting to become quite grumpy in my role because I was really done with it, but I couldn't find the right thing to move on to, and then my husband was also doing some questioning about his employment and about some of our dreams about being more free with where we wanted to live, because my husband's not from Canada, and we really wanted to think about living abroad again. We have had our eyes set on Latin America, and we thought, we have this dream of living in Latin America and learning Spanish, and we're not going to do that if we're employees at a company that get 2 or 3 weeks of vacation per year. We need to design our own job and design our own career so that we can design our own lives. And so we really started talking together and building a dream. And we realized the dream was centered on self-employment and that this practice needed to grow. So we started talking about how that could grow, and getting to the point that I could quit my job, and then shortly thereafter he could quit his job and join me so that we could make this our full-time focus. So since
I really love how you said about that. So like self-employment was your way to live your dream life, because that's exactly how I look at it. And it's just really, really great, because I really feel like we should be in charge of our careers, because if we're in charge of our careers, we're in charge of our lives. And it's so great, and it blows my mind, like, no offense to employed people, but it blows my mind that people have 2 weeks of vacation per year. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's so hard, like physically it's very hard to work this many weeks per year. Like, it's very, very hard. So yeah, there are definitely big benefits to being self-employed and to relocating. That's great.
Yeah, although I will say, I think at least in my first year of full-time self-employment, I think I'm working even harder. I find taking the time off on that's the challenges of the early stages of working for yourself. My husband and I are still figuring out when we can, or how to take vacation, because it's just the 2 of us in the business at this point. So that's a lesson we have to learn from someone like you, Olena, who's been in this a little longer.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you working harder as a self-employed person. I think for sure you are, but at the same time, you're probably enjoying it more than what you would do in a traditional career. At least in the long term, I think it is more enjoyment.
Yeah. I think sometimes about self-employment is you have to be motivated enough. Whatever you do has to motivate you to get out of bed in the morning. And I love what I do. It gets me out of bed in the morning. I'm excited to go to work every day. And that is, I don't mind working 6 days a week if that's what my life is.
Exactly. But what I like about your story is that at your previous job, when you realize that this job doesn't get you out of the bed in the morning, then you instantly start thinking about the change, right? Like, you start thinking about, okay, what can I do to change that? And that's very important, because I'm like super passionate about this topic, because I see so many people being stuck in the jobs and careers that they absolutely struggle with, they hate, they don't spend time with their families, they have problems with their health. A lot of times, right? And it's just they don't consider making that move, because by the end of the day, I think it's just very brave to make that move. And because before this shooting, I was listening to a podcast that I love. It's called Money Feels. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's an amazing podcast. And the hosts were talking about the fact that when you have that feeling that you cannot get out of the morning and you're scared of making that move, if you think about it, the repercussions of or the risk of something bad happening is actually not that big if you think about it. So what the worst thing that can happen? That the worst thing is that you quit your job, your self-employment doesn't work out, and you go and find a new job, right? This is the worst thing that can happen, right? But the reward, if it does work out, the reward is so great because you get to live the life that you want to live, right? And I think a lot of times when we're talking about taking that like next step or pivot even within the business, we kind of like over exaggerate that risk. We think it's greater than it is, right? We think it's like so scary when in fact it's just a matter of making that move. So I think it's really brave what you did. It's great. How's the life in Argentina?
It is fabulous. I'm really glad we also we found the bravery. I shout out to my therapist who helped me in 2022 when I was going through this to, I think, really help me goal set and really look at myself in the mirror and identify my priorities. And when we were thinking through the risk, he described it as having to walk through the fire, this fear, your bravery of doing something that seems scary. And part of our thinking, when I was speaking with my husband, we said, you know what? It's terrifying, the idea of not only quitting our jobs, but also we wanted to move to Argentina and study Spanish. And run our business remotely. We wanted to do a digital first Canadian immigration practice. And we thought, what if we fall flat on our face? So friends told us, you know what, you'll come back to Toronto and get a job. You have over a decade of experience. You have a great network. You're talented. You will get another job again if this doesn't work out. And you'll have great stories and interviews about how you took a risk and how you had a wonderful adventure for half a year in South America. What we also thought when we were evaluating this decision is, if we are 60 or 70 years old and we look back on our life and we say we never took a chance on ourselves, if we regret not having tried to pursue our dream, I think that is actually more scary than taking the risk and possibly failing. Because I do not want to be a person who, in my golden years, looks back and thinks that I didn't believe in myself and that I didn't try to pursue my dreams.
Exactly. So, absolutely. No, I love that. And you said that right from the beginning, which I didn't know this, that right from the beginning, you planned to work with your husband, so you both pursue this business together, right?
Yeah, so I'm the RCIC here. I've had the license since 2016. I was doing it all by myself on evenings and weekends. He vaguely knew he knew I brought in some vacation money and that was good. And he helped out with other parts of our life, running a household, and we balanced in different ways. But then when we started talking seriously about what could this look like, he needed to understand what I was doing. And it was great because I have a background not only as an RCIC, but also in advising and sales and recruitment and marketing. And his background is in operations and project management. So we have a really good balance of skill sets. And so he was able to come in, and he was the one who told me, he's like, you know what, Matthew, I see you have all this data from the past few years. I can tell you, on average, this is how much you're making each month without even trying. And now imagine if you started trying to generate clients, what this could look like. And you're making this much money on evenings and weekends. Imagine if you tried to do it full time. And so he really helped organize me, because when I was doing it off the side of my desk on evenings and weekends, I didn't have a business strategy. And so he helped bring in that business strategy and helped me plan. He helped me look at, okay, if you do want to quit your job, you need to set up some of this business infrastructure. Don't just walk in tomorrow and give notice. You have to, there's some things you need to do, from building a website, kind of standardizing your products and services and pricing, and really having a good brand awareness. And he also, in terms of working on client projects, he's like, how can I help make this more efficient? So he now that we're working full time together, he is, we call him the business manager. He does everything non-client facing, non-immigration that I can get off my desk, so that I can spend more time on the actual immigration, the work that requires immigration expertise. And I'm the one who communicates with clients, and I also generate new work for us as well. So he's like, please don't make me do sales, which is great. So he works in the background. He manages their projects. He keeps me on schedule. He's like, Matthew, here's your task list for today. So it's a good partnership so far.
That's great. Do you guys have a legal assistant?
We do not. It is just the two of us. So we just had our 1-year anniversary. We have a graphic designer who we have on contract, and we are trialing a legal assistant. We just met with her yesterday, and we are talking about giving this a go as our next step of development. She's going through the Queen's diploma to train to be an RCIC, and she wants a bit of practice and experience. We have actually worked together before. I hired her as a student when I was an international student advisor, so we have a good relationship and trust already. So I'm optimistic about where this may go. And this is a lot of what the fun part of self-employment is. I've seen other companies hire staff, they grow. We have a lot of examples to follow. We have people who are more experienced we can ask for advice, but we also have to get a sense for when in our business it's the right time. We don't want to grow too fast. We want to make sure that we're providing an exceptional client experience all the time. I remember in our early days, before we actually started our business together, we were traveling, and we were at the airport in Belgrade, Serbia. My husband is from Macedonia. That's where we met, and so we were traveling between Toronto and his home country. And there was this. We got off from our airport connection in the airport, and there was a lineup at the coffee stand of about 20 people. And he said, he's like, that's a bad business setup, because that you don't want to you have too many clients that everybody has to wait in line for half an hour, and they become unhappy that they're waiting so long to get service. And that was I think a great early example of how we started to think we don't want to grow too quickly. We want to make sure we have enough work so that we can put food on the table, but we don't want to grow too quickly that our clients are unhappy.
Exactly. No, that's very important, because I can see it all the time when RCICs put their ego as a first thing, and ego is growing fast because everybody wants to have this fancy firm, in downtown Toronto. But that's, in my opinion, that's in the ego, right? You're not thinking about your clients. And by the end of the day, you will not really build a successful or life-giving business, because it's going to become this giant machine that you have to feed over and over and over again, because you hired people and now you need more clients, and now you have more clients and you need more people, and it becomes this monster, right? So it's very, very important, yes, absolutely, to do the right timing in your business. I totally agree with that. I love how you guys split your responsibilities, because that seems to be like really, really like natural kind of like in your couple, because we talked about this, I work with my husband and we had it differently, because I'm more of like a business manager and he's more operations. He's more like into it, and he started as a legal assistant. Like when he started working with me, he was more like into processing, and then he got his license, and now he's like really into it. But he really doesn't like marketing. He doesn't like sales. He doesn't like any sort of like front-facing role.
Which you clearly do, and that's why we get along. And
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I wanted to ask you, so what is your main channel for marketing? Like, where do you market your services?
So LinkedIn actually is our number one source of generating leads. That's the platform that it grew out naturally because I was already there and I had a presence. Again, I wasn't trying, but I had grown a personal brand on LinkedIn I learned a lot through my past work experiences. I think one of the things that I do need to give credit for I love self-employment, but as an employee, I did learn quite a bit. So before doing this, I worked at the business school at the University of Toronto. So before that, I studied English literature in university, and so I needed to learn some business fundamentals. And that's where I learned about networking and coffee chats and sales and marketing through my work there, and about building a brand and a presence. And so through LinkedIn, because it's so widely used in a business school context, and because of the students I was supporting were on LinkedIn as part of their own job searches, I grew on LinkedIn as well, and I started really enjoying the platform, so that I already had a good sized network there. And as I started sharing more Canadian immigration content, I was noticing how well received it was. And I enjoyed creating it, and people enjoyed responding to it. And so there was a nice natural fit there, so that I decided to use it to keep growing. I also thought LinkedIn is nice because you tend to have working professionals who are more willing to pay for professional services than I think on other social media platforms. I have had a presence on Twitter for over a decade, but I don't use it as much. I find I'm of the opinion that it is certainly not what it used to be since Elon Musk took it over. I have my personal Instagram account, but I don't have a business one. Same with Facebook. I don't have a business Facebook. I think they do have strengths on Instagram and Facebook. I see in Latin America, Instagram is used very widely for business. And so I have thought about it, but ultimately, it's me and my husband. We only have time to do so much. So I keep focused on LinkedIn. I'm mindful that I don't want to over rely on one platform, because in case someone buys up LinkedIn and ruins it, I need to have another platform to be able to connect with people. So I also am nurturing a newsletter. I studied literature. I love to write, and so I am trying to build my email list and a newsletter following. I haven't quite figured out exactly what my newsletter focuses on. I share out some content about Canadian immigration updates, on specific topics that I know my clients are interested in. I'm not trying to be the guy who shares all the latest information on Canadian immigration. Other people do that. I don't need to copy that. Those people exist, and that they're good at it. They have a staff, they have a team, they can stay on top of that. I really share what is most relevant to my clients that I know, and I like to give context and commentary to the issues that I think that matter. And that's where I really try to position myself when I do share an email blast. I have a blog on my website. I share context and commentary is my phrase. Most recently, I published. I'm getting into. I'm finding time to do some creative nonfiction writing now that I am in charge of designing my own job. I just published a personal essay on learning, on language learning, on adapting to a new country, on trying to make friends in a new country, on trying to build a community. And so I just hit publish on that last night. And because part of why we came to Argentina is it's not simply a love for travel. It is definitely a new base, and I'm so thankful that we on Sunday when we take the day off, we get to wander around a new neighborhood and explore this new city. So I'm thankful for that. But part of why we came here was that we wanted a personal refresher on migration. We wanted really to understand what it feels like to go through as we are growing this business, so that we can understand better what our clients are going through. I was born in Manitoba, Canada. So I grew up in Canada, spent most of my life in Canada, but I did live for 4 years in Europe, both in France for 1 year and then in Macedonia for 3 years, where I met my husband before I sponsored him for permanent residence. And then we moved to Canada, we moved to Toronto in 2013, the two of us. So I saw him go through all of the settlement and integration challenges of moving to a new country with career, friendship, identity, being away from family, making new friends. Toronto was a new city for me. I also had to make new friends, but at least it was in my first language, and I was Canadian, so I had a lot easier time. Now we're getting a refresher in Argentina. We're learning Spanish. I mean, we were pretty basic when we got here. We're taking classes. We're trying to make friends, which is I forgot how slow going it is. Even though I'm a very social person, and I'm thankful I got invited. We got invited out on Friday night, but you show up at someone's apartment and you try to make. I'm really good at small talk in English, but I'm terrible at it in Spanish. So some of this I think has been a really great experience for thinking more broadly about migration, which is something of much interest to me, and I think is a possibility for where our business will grow in the future. Canadian immigration obviously is our focus. That is the specific license I have and what our immigration firm is focused on. But I know we have an interest more broadly in global mobility, migration patterns and studies. So I think part of our international move, is to understand the way that humans move around on this planet, and I don't know what this looks like in the next 5 to 10 years of our business, but I can identify that this is a big issue. What we're learning, for example, as we sit in the content of South America, we have a completely new perspective on what's happening in Venezuela right now, because it is not only during the Venezuelan election this August, because about 25% of Venezuela's population has left the country in the past 10 years, which is a clear sign of what that government is doing. And it's devastating. We see a number of Venezuelans in Canada. We see a number of Venezuelans and others moving through the Darien Gap, through dangerous routes, through Central America and up through Mexico and into the United States and Canada. And there's a huge amount of Venezuelans in Argentina. And so being able to see some of these migration patterns based on global events, I think is one thing that I really appreciate about being able to dedicate my life both personally and professionally to migration. I just am getting a better understanding of the world and the humans who live in it.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting because most of the times I think we as RCICs, we take the position of kind of love for Canada, and let's bring people to and show them Canadian life and show them this beautiful country. And this is definitely how I started, right? Because when I came to Canada, I came 2011, and when I came to Canada, I really fell in love with the country. And then when I got my license in 2016 as well, I really was so passionate about just helping people to see what I see and to get help that I never got that help, really, really high quality professional help. But that was all coming from the view of loving Canada. When you, how you talk is about loving the globalization, I guess, and love of migration and just the freedom of people to choose their path, choose their life, and to hopefully escape some horrible times in their own countries and build better future in a bigger kind of scale, right? In a bigger, more open-minded way you see it, which I love that.
I think it's come a bit from working with clients. I've been working with a number of clients from West Africa in recent years, and I've become increasingly frustrated by IRCC, and I see in some cases with clients that Canada is not going to work out for them, and so I would like to be able to help them with other options. To say, okay, I know you want to leave you want to change things in your life. You want to migrate to try to address some goals, and if you can't do Canada, what are some? I would love to be able to help present other options to them, because I really understand this desire to move. It's within me, because I left my home farm in rural Manitoba early on. I'm now in my 4th countries. I've lived in about 6 cities in Canada. I seem to move every 2 or 3 years. So this is very personal as well. And I know myself sometimes when I think of a destination that I want to go to, and if it doesn't work out, then I know how to pivot. So for example, our first goal was to move to Mexico. The first Latin American country we fell in love with was Mexico. Let me tell you, Mexican Spanish is a lot easier than Argentine Spanish too. And but it just financially didn't make sense. There was a growing hostility in Mexico City too around North Americans who were working digitally and talk about driving prices up. So we really wanted, whereas Buenos Aires was much more receptive to people like us, and so we adjusted our strategy to go where we felt we would be more welcome. And so I think a lot of people in the world are like that, and I think a lot of people do have their eyes on Canada, but it is one of several options a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Let's go. The reason why I think a lot of our RCICs do this, they have to promote Canada, is because we have to try to convince them, Canada is great, don't go to Australia, we want you to come to Canada. And I guess part of my perspective too comes from frustrations. Even though I do think Canada is a beautiful country and I think we have so much going for us and so much to be proud of, I also know, especially in the immigration, settlement, and integration space, we have so much work to do. And I think part of maybe my 5 to 10 year plan is, I think as I learn more, I think I may be better equipped to help Canada address some of these challenges, so that so that I can provide insights to help make the system work better, so that individual lives are better when people come to Canada, whether this is socializing, integrating with other people, whether this is with their careers, whether so that there's immigrants have better economic success in the country. I think there's a lot of work we have to do as a country and as a society. Even though I can still promote Canada, I'm also very pragmatic with my clients about the challenges that they should expect in adapting to a new country, because I can speak to those because part of it's not Canada's fault a lot of the time. Sometimes it's just an individual adaptation to a new place, a new career, a new city, a new language. It's tough to make these adaptations, and I think Canada, despite all of its really good intentions of trying to be a welcoming place, I think a lot of Canadian policymakers and workers who don't have recent migration experience don't understand all that's involved.
Yes, no, absolutely. And you know what? You forget really fast, because I just realized only recently that it's been how many years now? 13 years?
Yeah.
On August 20th, what day is today? August 20th. So tomorrow is my actually 13 years in Canada.
Wow.
And
happy birthday.
I totally forgot about it. Yeah, so it was 13 years in Canada, and I think first 5 years you feel this experience to the fullest, but after 5 years I just start forgetting, and you forget, it just kind of dulls down the whole experience, so it's not that raw. And that's part of the reason, as I told you earlier, why I'm kind of withdrawing from the actual hands-on case management in my firm, because I feel like I lost the connect with clients. And I lost the connect with clients, and I don't want to fake that I care so much, because I remember how I used to be, and now I'm not like that. I have my different, I feel like I've gotten to a different stage, and I forgot the experience that it was, and I feel like I cannot assist to that level as I used to, in a more emotional way, in more because a lot of our job is so mental, and so psychological, and I really don't want to, and I really want to make sure that they get really, really good level of caring, right? So that's part. Yeah, totally part of the, and I totally understand why you. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I sometimes describe my work as 80% emotional support and 20% legal advice. Just to your point.
100%. So let me ask you a question. You mentioned about your past clients. What cases do you guys usually handle? Do you have specific case types that you work with?
Yeah, I think, knowing my background, my career in Canadian immigration began with working with international students. My first exposure to Canada's immigration system was sponsoring my husband. So We do love doing spousal and common law sponsorship applications. It's heartwarming because it feels very personal, and we really connect with our clients. But most of my career and most of my reputation has grown from the work I did supporting international students in Toronto, and so most of our work is actually helping international student graduates transition to permanent residence, because that is something that colleges and universities do not help their students with. And so there's a gap in the market where international students are often taken care of by the person who may be an agent or someone who helps them come to Canada in the first place. And then the college or university will help them while they're a student, and then nobody's helping them afterwards. And that's where I'm looking to come in, and I do a lot of help in that transition to permanent residence. And so that would, I'd say, as a big bulk of our work. And then international students, family members as well, or just some of the transitions to during international student lives. We do still take some clients who are as they're coming to Canada for the first time to study, and during their studies as well. And then we just, through referrals, we do a smattering of other work permits, permanent residence, citizenship cases as well. But we don't do a lot of work directly with employers, nor do we do many LMIAs. It's really a lot of individual permanent residence journey or maintaining temporary residence status in Canada, because I would say 80% of our clients are already in Canada when they start working with us.
Yes, it's exactly how our firm works, and like that's where I started. Definitely, it's just taking care of international students who already graduated and like guiding them towards permanent residency. And it's exactly how we worked for 8 years. So we're really matching there. But the reason I asked is because you mentioned about LinkedIn being your main tool for marketing, and what I noticed, like through this conversation, through following you on LinkedIn, I noticed that you are really focused building deep connections and deep relationships with individuals, like your clients or your potential clients, your followers, your audience, right? Even like how you talked about your potential newsletter, right? That you don't want to be, it's not about volume, it's about the depth of and the quality, right, of your relationships with your audience. And I think this is very different, and this is something that I'm learning to do, because it's just so much out there about Canadian immigration, and it's really, really easy to get stuck on the like volume of content to produce, on the how fast you're going to post about that draw, how fast you're going to post about the new pathway, and just like posting, especially on Instagram, especially on that platform. But depth, that's what matters by the end of the day, because you don't need 1 billion clients, you don't even need 1,000 clients. You just need a handful of clients that are willing to compensate for your services and get that really high quality service. I think this is very different, what I see in you, that you're like so focused on the depth, the quality, and the just in terms of marketing, in terms of course work, but it's different because it's rarely that we see it in immigration work, especially on Instagram. Instagram is crazy. Like it's just it's
you make me feel good that I'm actually not trying to spend time on there then. I definitely am a person who wears my heart on my sleeve, and I'm doing this because I have a heart for it. It's part of my family. It's part of now my own life. I identify as a migrant as well, and I also understand the vulnerability I have living in a new place. And so this is one of the ways I thought about distinguishing ourselves. There's so many RCICs, so many lawyers, and when we were thinking about what makes us different, what makes us different is who we are. It's our so our website, if you go to it, yourcanadianstory.ca, if you go to our website, you'll see that our website, we get told very regularly that our website is so different, because we are, there's no red and white, for instance, on the website.
Yes.
And there's no Canada branding. It's again, I told you I studied literature, the idea of storytelling, and so this is why we chose Your Canadian Story. We share our Canadian story because we believe that if clients are going to trust us, because it's a huge amount of trust to share not just dreams and aspirations, but finances, family details, health information, salary. Our clients share so much with us, and I feel like if they are going to share so much of their lives with us, I feel like I need to share some of myself with them as well, and be a human with them, make it feel safe to work with us. And so that's part of why we built our website branding around this idea of Your Canadian Story. And we want to really help our clients with their Canadian story, whatever that story will look like. We help them write it to keep the metaphor going. And we really thought about our values. One of the things I told you about working in previous organizations that do put when I worked at Rotman School of Management, the University of Toronto before, they actually wrote their core values on a wall, so that when people walked into the building, they would see what those core values are. I remember in a job interview talking about the values of the organization. And so that's one of those things I learned about an organization. You have to have your North Star. You have to know that if you are making decisions that are not true to where your business is and who you are. So we spent a lot of time thinking through what our values were. And this actually happened in 2002, I was telling you. In addition to working with a therapist, doing a lot of reflection on where I wanted to go in my career, and maybe where I would get more career satisfaction. And so when I started thinking about what the business would be, and what if I were going to pursue self-employment, what it would look like, we landed on four key terms, and they are warmth, they are understanding, they're authenticity, and integrity. And so those are the values that we really use to root ourselves and make some of the decisions around where we want our business to be and where we want it to grow. And which is why I don't see us becoming one of those large downtown Toronto firms that just grows and grows and grows. My husband and I aren't interested in managing a company of 100 people. That's not why we wanted to become self-employed. We wanted to work with people and feel good about the work we do.
I love that. Do you find this sometimes emotionally draining to be empathetic and open, and how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal on daily, because I know exactly how it is, and on daily basis, and sometimes you just can't handle it, like it's too much. How do you deal with all the stress?
I've learned over the years. I know it was much harder in my early career when I was a teacher and I was a college counselor, and I was helping students apply to university. My husband and I worked at the same high school too, when I was in Macedonia, and we would sometimes talk about our students and our concerns at home, because we would carry that emotional burden home with us as teachers, and we had to learn to stop doing that. And then too, when I moved to Toronto, I remember some of the cases I encountered, some of the challenges that some of the students I worked with had as international students. Sometimes I cried on the bus home from work. It was very hard to see such difficult circumstances, and I would often feel powerless to help change them. And again, I don't want to use the word harden myself, but I had to learn to emotionally separate myself, because I knew, like, look at me, I'm starting to tear up. I can't be who I need to be for everyone if I am overwhelmed by any individual client's situation. So I think this is a lot. I view the work, as much as it's legal work, I see myself as part of a caring profession. like teachers, like nurses, like advisors, like therapists, and I pull on little bits that I've learned from other people I admire as teachers, as therapists, as coaches at the gym, to help do what I can for the client who has entrusted me with their life, to make sure that I leave them better, make sure that I help them with the legal issues, but also help them, when sleep at night, help them have some peace of mind. Because again, as I say, a lot of it is, I say 80% emotional support, 20% legal advice, because people often come in a very fragile or fearful state when they are dealing with immigration challenges.
Absolutely. Do you have any, tips or a tip because you must have boundaries with your clients, like it must be some boundaries, and it's just extra hard, like when you're so empathetic and you have such strong values, you need to really be intentional with those boundaries, so they really align with your values, right, and with who you are inside, but at the same time they allow you, as you said, to kind of separate it. Like, do you have a tip for that?
Yeah, I think boundaries that's a great word, and I think everyone needs to think through them clearly in their practice, especially new practitioners who are eager to get clients and try to show themselves to be available and helpful. I know there's a very slippery slope of, say, using WhatsApp or giving out your phone number to clients who will very eagerly contact you endlessly and at all hours of the day or night. And so that is something I have to be very firm about with clients, to let them know that, when it is not in cases I give out my number on WhatsApp, it is in case of emergency, not our main communication channel.
Sorry, but very practical question. Like, normally it's not in your practice to give your personal phone number, no?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. And normally you do all the communication through the email, right?
So in my contracts, email is the primary form of communication, and I also any client that I'm acting as a representative, I give them a link so they can book Zoom meetings with me in my calendar. I'm available within the next 24 hours, but they have to book the meeting, and it has to have purpose, and it is within the business hours that I preset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, because that's a huge, I do business coaching, and that's a huge part of it and I get so much resistance from RCICs, legal professionals, regarding this topic, because my life changed when I started doing what you're doing. Only emails, and nobody knows my phone number. Nobody can just call me and I pick up. That just doesn't happen. And if you need a meeting with me, absolutely, I can do the same day meeting or the next day meeting, but it has to be booked for a specific time in my schedule. So exactly what you explained. But a lot of RCICs, they really struggle with accepting this and even trying. I have to try so hard to convince RCICs to try this. And because RCICs are afraid that clients will perceive it as they are not helpful, as they're not caring, right? So what I find that RCICs are very insecure, because they're afraid that clients thinks that you abandon them, but it doesn't really work that way. You're just trying to build the professional boundaries. By the end of the day, as caring as we are, but we need to understand that it's a place of business, right? It's a professional, you're in a professional role here, and it's easy. I used to build friendships with clients when I started, and then I quickly understood that may backfire. So yeah, I'm trying to always keep things a little bit more separate.
To your point, I used to be more of a people pleaser. I mean, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Me too. Yes, me too.
I used to be the person who would respond right away to every text message, every message on Instagram, because I felt like I needed to respond to other people, and I realized I was sucking my energy away, and I realized I think I had my insecurity of worrying that people wouldn't like me if I didn't respond right away. Now my friends don't get responded to daily either.
I know. The same.
And you know what? But for years, I would sometimes be annoyed that friends that didn't respond in the same way I did. And I now realize that those friends actually just have better structured lives and are living healthier lives with better boundaries. And so they are then able to respond to my messages when they are in the right place to focus on me, rather than doing it amongst 10 other things. And so I take that to my business as well. If I'm going to be my best self for my clients when they need me, they need to let me have rest time at night. They need to let me go to the gym so that I can, bash out my frustrations, and they need to let me sleep. And they need to let me have quality time with my family too. So I think that's why, just as our clients also don't want their bosses to call them at 9:00 p.m.
Exactly. No, absolutely. I just totally understand, because it's so difficult to be in this, set of mind and, people pleaser. That's exactly who I am. But it's so much more difficult for us to build those boundaries. Like my husband, for example, Corey, he does not have this problem. Like he just absolutely is fine with boundaries. Like he doesn't think about, I didn't respond to that Instagram message, right? Like he just doesn't have that problem. And for me, it takes so much work and therapy to actually go through all the steps and 2 years of therapy, and then here we are.
Yeah, my husband's the same. Apparently we are married to similar people. So I guess that's why our family business relationships are working. It's a balance in you can
Exactly. I actually learned a lot from my husband in that regards, because he's been working in corporate space for a long time, and I feel like that's where it comes from. Like it's, the boundaries are very strict, and I learned a lot from that, and from what is respectful and when you should not allow clients to cross that line. And it's a work in progress, but I'm happy that you learned how to balance those things when you're still caring, and at the same time you deliver great service. Now I know we're kind of running out of time, but can I ask you just a last question, because I've had it in mind, I have it written down. So with everything that we talked about, I can only assume that the client service that you deliver to your clients is just absolutely amazing. Can you tell me, how did you decide, or how do you decide your pricing policies? Do you keep your pricing on the kind of a top level or average, or how do you decide that? Because I find, so right now, as we're recording this, I'm running a challenge with a lot of RCICs. I have over 130 RCICs enrolled in the group, and basically we talk about pricing and priced. The connection's kind of interrupting. Well, what I realized is that a lot of RCICs are really, really, really undercharging, and I mean really undercharging. So how did you decide your pricing, and what's your take on it?
So I had the advantage of trial and error for a few years when it wasn't very important. And so I started at $100 an hour, because I'm part of KPIC, and I'm able to see what other people do and kind of averages, and I kind of put myself below average when I was doing this on evenings and weekends. I didn't have many costs either, and I slowly started raising my fees as I valued my time more, because as I got busier and more people wanted my time on evenings and weekends, I raised my prices to try to get fewer clients, because I said I want to make, if I make the same amount of money and work less, that would help me. So I was able to gradually increase my prices in a way that because I thought I was too cheap and I was getting too much work than I had time for, and it wasn't worth it to me to spend all of my Fridays and Saturdays working. I thought, if I'm going to work Monday to Friday 9 to 5 and on weekends, I need to be making more money. And again, I was in the position where I wasn't using this to pay bills, so it was a good way to learn. And so that's how I slowly started increasing. And so now I set my hourly rate at $200 an hour, but I do offer a discount for international students, which is backed at 50% for anyone enrolled in a college or university.
Sorry, Matthew, I kind of lost you there for a second because I don't know, again, if it's a Canadian Wi-Fi or Argentinian Wi-Fi, but...
What did you last hear me say?
No, that's okay. I think I think we got the whole response idea of the response. It was just a little bit chopped at the end. But yeah, thank you so much. It's just I think it's important to value. I saw this saying somewhere that the first person that you need to sell to is yourself. Because if you're not willing to believe in what you're charging and that it is worthwhile to charge that, then nobody else, I can guarantee, will not believe in that, right? So I think that this is where the whole problem with a lot of art is that they just, a lot of people undercharge just because they're insecure, right?
Yeah.
They're insecure and they maybe. Okay, yeah, I think connection kind of breaking down now, but thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know we're running out of time now, and it was super interesting conversation with you. I just loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I loved getting to know you and sharing as well. So I guess the internet definitely is telling us it's time to wrap up, but I'm looking forward to reconnecting soon.
Thank you, Matthew, and I'll see you soon. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
Bye.